Hi, my name's Judith Weir. I'm the principal of Our Lady of Mercy College in Heidelberg, which is a secondary all-girls school in Heidelberg, in Melbourne. And the joys of having your last name start with W is you're always last. And I'm probably the weak link, I'll be honest, today. But anyway, so my presentation is less focused on the nitty-gritty of our PLT and more about the learnings, because the learnings has generated changing our focus along the way. And as Kate mentioned and others have mentioned, we have struggled in the journey because COVID changed some of the pathways that our PLTs took along the way. So our project was focused on building collective efficacy to strengthen the professional learning teams and student outcomes. And unlike the others, I am going to rely on notes, because those of you in the room who know me also know it's best not to just let me talk. So our project was specifically focused on improving student learning outcomes, and we wanted to build the collective efficacy of our teachers. We began this project with really strong preconditions for success. We have a really collaborative culture, a really strong culture of working together. But whether or not we had a strong culture of focusing on efficacy was where our question lay. Our initial focus was trying to move our middle band of students, and we were looking specifically at improving the use of data evidence and research. We wanted to increase data literacy, and we wanted to provide development for our teachers, and we provided coaching to support that development. PLTs were a newly formalised process of working in 2019. The school had a strong focus on professional learning and a strong commitment to staff, but not the formalised structure of a professional learning team. So it was new in 2019. It was very welcomed. But it was a slow start, because we also had to spend some time building the preconditions and understanding for what it means to be more than cooperative and more than collaborative. When I look back now on starting this journey, particularly with the benefit of the work that we've done with the Menzies Foundation, I went into this with a fairly undercooked understanding of collective efficacy. And so our starting place was not probably the place that we would start now if we were on this journey again. So what we did is focus particularly on the development of middle band student growth. We used the Harvard DataWise model as our model of inquiry, and this whole process was interrupted in 2020 and 2021. The shift went to what do we need to do in terms of learning for our students who were facing new learning needs. So we had to really address that. So that became the focus of the PLT. Coincidentally, it also, in some respects, gave us a platform to really bounce off in 2022, because teachers were forced into collaboration in ways they hadn't before, purely to survive. They had to go into those PLTs truly believing that if they didn't show up and they didn't learn from somebody else and they didn't contribute, their students weren't going to be able to do as well as everybody else's. So the silver lining in remote learning for us has been perhaps a jump in the depth of the collaboration that occurred, and perhaps even a move towards a better understanding of the efficacy. So in 2022, we had to regroup, and we had to do a little bit of reimagining and work through what we were going to do and our next steps to consolidate. An emerging theme that was driven through our learning and teaching team and through the individual PLTs was a need to understand and work with assessment and assessment practices. So it was a common theme that an obstacle for driving improvement student learning was a practice we were engaged in that wasn't necessarily bringing out the best of students or giving them the right opportunities through assessment. So we focused heavily this year on working with developmental rubrics. It's been informed by data, and our data has been internally and externally provided, and it has also enabled us to see that there's a group of students who are also high achieving students who are not growing at the rate that we would like to see them grow. So we've actually focused in on that as well. And throughout all of this, we've been working to support the capacity of our leaders to develop a common language and a common framework and a common process to move through. Our key learning and when I say ours, sometimes they're just mine, but I'm going to say they're ours. A huge part of this journey is understanding your assumptions, is something I think we learned. And it was easy to make the assumption that the leadership team and all of the middle leaders understood the problem and saw the same problem and in the same way. So during the course of this journey, through the Menzies, and as you've heard today, we were introduced to the concept of mindset, skill set and tool set. An assumption we made was that all the leaders had the skill sets and tool sets they need to lead the change we were seeking. They all have strong skill sets and they do have tool sets, but it was particularly around the change we were seeking. So we also made the assumption that the supports we had put in place around ensuring that they were able to lead professional learning of staff, that they were able to lead teams, that they understood how to lead improvement for student learning, that they were the right supports and that they were going to also provide exactly what we needed. And obviously a learning in that for us was to recognise that we probably, if we'd started now, we would do much more work on the mindset of our leaders before we built their skill set and tool set. We'd planned to support them through a whole lot of processes, but what we saw was a change in their skills and an improvement in the tools they use, but we weren't necessarily sure we had the mindset moving forward. So the leadership team has been working on an accountability, a process of trying to have accountability and fidelity to the strategy that we're trying to put forward. I think the other learning for us was being clear about the non-negotiables. So everybody was clear about the direction, they were clear about why we were doing this work. They could see the data and they understood why we needed to focus where we were focusing. But when you have a lot of teams working and all trying to do what they think is right to build the work that they're doing, sometimes things can move. And so one of the things that we have developed is a set of expectations and understandings around common language and common frameworks so that the non-negotiables are clearer. Through Menzies, we were introduced to the collective efficacy tool, which you have today, and I, like Kate, the larger part of our work began with the 2021 model, so some of the things I say now may not appear exactly or relate exactly to the tool as it is. A big learning for us and a big part of the work, particularly when we started using the tool, is collective efficacy is really important in our leadership team. And if our leadership team is sharing in that collective efficacy, then our middle leaders can learn from it. One of the things that became evident is that as a leadership team, we've all come from very different experiences and learnt change management in different environments and for different projects. So that was a really important realisation for us, because while 80% of those processes are the same across projects and across ideas, It was the 20% that was different, that was challenging. And I really need to stress, the leadership team were doing fantastic work. That wasn't the issue. But the collective efficacy tool and using that with our teams and the development of that saw us taking slightly different tacks with different teams. We needed to find a common language and a common set of expectations that we all shared and that we were efficacious about, so that we were having those conversations with our middle leaders. So we decided we needed to do something together. 2 minutes. So we decided we needed to do something together. So we did a course at Harvard. It gave us the language of opportunity and performance gaps, core and explore activities, and it helped us with to develop a congruence model. It's hard to implement collective efficacy. It's really easy to fall into the trap that because people are all coming and they're doing the work and they're talking the right talk, that's actually that you have efficacy. And we've been had to pay particular attention to the difference between cooperation, so showing up to do the work. If you're showing up to do the work and you're saying, I'm doing what everyone else is doing, but there isn't any real depth in it, then, and you're not actually owning the responsibility for the cohort, only your class, then the students are missing out. And that's what we really wanted to change. It's hard to do collective efficacy. It's really hard to be vulnerable and to have that space where you're vulnerable, and it's really important to focus on the preconditions. And if I was doing this project again, I probably would have started with and now that I have a tool, I would actually start with unpacking collective efficacy and not, because I feel like we're started at the end. We started with where we wanted to be, but really this is where we should have started. Everybody understanding that what it would look like if we were a staff that was fully efficacious. So that's a snapshot of my journey, and I think I'm